And we're live. Hip hip hooray, it's another umbraCoffee Friday, and the sun's out here, at least in London. Today I'm joined by the wonderful uSkinned team, Marc and Paul. Hey guys.
Hi, Callum. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining me. I was going to ask if the sun's out. It doesn't look like it is for you, Marc, but maybe.
No, it is. I'm at the wrong side of the house for the sun, so it's actually going to be one of the warmest days. I think it will be the warmest day this year in Glasgow. So.
Yeah, it's just blue skies outside the office for me. So
yeah, it's a lovely breath of fresh air here. At least, so my flat, we're on the kind of top floor, and we have a really nice view, and we're west facing. So what it means is right at like 3 p.m. the sun just tips down and shines straight through these huge windows we've got here, and it heats up like a little greenhouse. So I'm going to look forward to putting some shorts on later, maybe having a beer or two.
Is it Bristol? Is that where you?
No, I'm based in London now. I'm based in London.
Ah, okay. Yeah, the pubs aren't open here.
Yeah,
the pubs aren't open here yet, so we have to wait till Monday to get a beer garden.
Oh, is it Monday that? Is it Monday that they reopen?
Yeah, no doubt it'll be raining by then.
Yeah, I'll be honest, because we have a really good pub right opposite, and the first day that it lifted, I saw the tables were empty and the sun was out, kind of. So I thought, you know what, I'll have a pint. I've not had one in months, and it felt very, very good.
I saw. I don't know if it was on this last week that you said you could actually use your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's true. It's so close I can connect to the Wi-Fi. So I think it still counts as being at work, right?
Yeah,
totally.
When you're your own boss, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Cool. So how have you both been? Of course, everything being the past 18 months, it's been all over the shop, hasn't it? But how's it been?
Yes, it's been surprisingly okay, and obviously the whole pandemic, you worry, and we're in shared offices in Glasgow. There's a lot of digital agencies doing the same thing or similar as us, maybe not in Umbraco, but a lot of them have moved out during this pandemic. So we've seen a fair few companies disappear, but we've been luckily okay up to this point.
Yeah, we've been quite lucky, and like kind of got to just see it that way. Like we've totally been lucky. Like working from home, obviously quite a bit, which I don't usually like, but I've actually grown to enjoy it. But I am in the office today. Yeah,
we I think it was maybe last week we joked that remote working's been fun because you've actually discovered your family are somewhat pleasant to be around sometimes. I think there'll be a time when people still want their space again. But
yeah. I like the routine of working from home, like just getting up, start working, and then maybe working out at lunchtime or going for a long walk. Yeah. It is actually quite relaxing.
Yeah, definitely. I've enjoyed kind of grabbing lunch and sitting in the park or something when the sun's been out, and that's something I would never have done before. Even though I've worked from home for many years now, because my girlfriend was here, it's unusual. You do some different routines.
Yeah, totally.
We were saying just before we went live actually that things seem to be picking up a bit on the job front as well. We've seen a bunch of job ads for Umbraco devs the past few weeks, at least in the UK, which is hopefully a good sign that things are picking back up, somewhat going back to normal. So we can just keep our fingers crossed there.
Definitely.
Cool. Should we talk about some Umbraco news? Of course, we've got some uSkinned things to talk about as well, but I think maybe first we can talk about the recent Umbraco release, which was this week, Umbraco 8.13. Of course, we had the release candidate previously, but this includes a whole bunch of features, and there's a fantastic video with Runa and Warren talking through this release, going through all the features. The big one that stuck out to me, and maybe you guys have got a view on this because it's something that uSkinned definitely has as well, is this color eyedrop picker now being actually in core. Because I noticed, I think it was in 8.10, somebody introduced a really nice Angular component that does this picker, but it was never a data type. And I, in a project, actually made a custom data type that just used that Angular component, but now it's in core, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, it's definitely something we need to investigate, how we could maybe, if we can use it for our own.
I think the thing with this is that Paul will take you through like the design, how design works with our site builder, but we tried to create a design at a global level, so that you're defining your color scheme for the entire site. You set that once, and then when you're actually the editors don't need to go in and worry about that. So that color picker in the example that Warren's shown is more for changing colors in line, and that is not something that we would do. We would have like a color library that you pick from that you've already set somewhere else.
Yeah, almost like you've set a brand guidelines elsewhere for a global design, and then you kind of use those colors, your accent colors and stuff that you've already created. But you can go and edit those as well and add as many colors as you want to that. And but there is maybe something to investigate in trying to use more of what's new in core.
Yeah, at least like hexadecimals are not editor friendly, but at least if you want a kind of self-serve experience for picking a color, having this color swatch that you can just click something and it generates the hex is maybe good. In some cases, I appreciate the brand guidelines as well, and I guess we'll talk about that because that's a really interesting point. As I mentioned, of course, Umbraco 8.13 this week, it comes with a few other things like copying media types, as well as some accessibility and performance fixes, which is always awesome. There was a whole bunch of contributors as well. I managed to get 6 PRs in there. I didn't quite realize. I think it's a bunch of Hacktoberfest stuff that is only finally coming out, but it's great to see. And if for the eagle-eyed people, someone noticed initially Umbraco tweeted that it was 8.12 that had come out and very quickly deleted it. And the video demo even refers to it as 8.12. So it's 8.13. Cool. There was another big release announcement this week, which is Umbraco 9 beta is coming on Wednesday next week. That's the 28th of April. And there's going to be a live webinar as well, where Philip and Bjarke and Runa are going to talk you through everything that's going on. But this is kind of the big one. This is a feature complete CMS. It does everything you want. It's got membership. It's got kind of you could start building packages against it. You could start working with it, which is a really interesting idea. What's your plan with this? Because of course you're building a product on top of Umbraco. It's important that you support different versions, but it's a lot of that as well.
The beta is the first one that we're actually going to try out in earnest, like to really give it a go and see how our packages will work with it. The interesting thing about this Umbraco 9 version, I was at the Glasgow meetup during the week, and Emma Burstow was talking about the migration process. And thinking back in the past history with Umbraco 7 to 8, it wasn't, I would class Umbraco 7 and Umbraco 8 as two completely different products. So it wasn't an upgrade. It wasn't an upgrade from 7 to 8. It was two different products. But what they're saying with 9 is that content, the actual structure of content behind the scenes is going to be identical. So moving content from 8 to 9 should be seamless. And then it's just a case of us actually updating our codes to work with core. So any event handlers or compositions that we've built in, that's the bit that we are going to need to rewrite. But as long as we do that right, the actual transfer from an 8 site to a 9 site should be pretty seamless.
Yeah, you mentioned the content being the same, and that is the case. So the database, you could run a V8 database against V9 code, and that's fantastic. So that was the big issue at the start, I think, with Umbraco 7 to 8, wasn't it? The database wasn't migratable, but the code was. You still had to start again with your content. So there's some saving grace there, and also the back office technologies staying exactly the same for now. So any custom property editors you've built, providing they're all JavaScript, should just work. But it's definitely not going to be a small update, I guess, for you when you're building a whole system with a lot of moving parts, including things like membership. You've got login.
From what I've gathered, from what I've read and heard, is that membership does change quite a bit. So, I mean, with our themes, basically what we've built into them is basic membership. So you've got a member, you can log in, you've got password reminder, and you've got member registration. So it's the basics of a membership system that you can then extend. So there shouldn't be too much involved in it. And that's like, it doesn't scare us, this new version 9. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing for the Umbraco ecosystem. The fact that you're going to be able to host it wherever you want is massive. Hopefully it's going to grow the ecosystem, and these are all a benefit to package providers.
Yeah, and I think Umbraco are putting themselves in a better place than they did for when 8 came out, really. You know what I mean? There's a lot of focus on making sure packages are going to be ready. Andy Whitland's doing blog posts that I've kind of skimmed and what he started to talk about anyway. And then Warren, I think, is doing some videos, which I saw on Twitter yesterday. I don't know if he's posted them. But stuff like that, there's a lot of resources this time by the sounds of it. There wasn't for V8.
I mean, V8 came literally out of nowhere, in honesty. I remember at the time, actually, I was in Australia, and it was on a really awkward time that V8 was going to be officially launched, and I think we were given maybe 3 or 4 days warning. And I made sure I dialed in, and that was all great. And then, of course, there was perhaps a period of 3 or 4 or maybe a few more months where actually the community wasn't too happy with the product. Whereas now, we should probably consider this beta release that's coming out next week as that 8.0 release. The equivalent of 8.1, a bit more matured, something that we can really trust to build our sites with.
I mean, with version 8.6 was the one that we felt comfortable with. I always remember that.
I think it was August sort of time, so it came out in February initially, and it was August probably.
For 8.1, it did take until August, But as Mark says, the 8.6 one has been this year, and it's definitely a huge stability boost in that release.
Because was that a blocklist editor? Was the 8.6 then?
Or one of them, 8.6 or 8.7, something around that.
I'll have to keep track.
Whilst we're talking about this, of course, I might as well just rattle through the other migration content that we've got, because there's quite a lot of it now. It's the hot topic. Andy has added a fantastic blog post to his existing series of migrating some of the HQ packages. So this is Umbraco forms that they've been working on. And this blog post literally covers all that you need to know of all the quirks he came up against. This reference has moved, it's now this. You actually have to do dependency injection a little bit differently now, or these method signatures have changed, or it's just he's got some membership stuff in here as well. Just there's some. This is a really nice guide, and hopefully this will get turned into some documentation. You mentioned Warren's video too. Warren's done a fantastic, pretty long video actually of migrating a relatively simple package with some core components over to.
He does look very confused in the screenshot.
I think that look doesn't really change throughout the video. As he admits in the description, maybe a few mistakes were made, but that's kind of expected. To me,
Andy's blog post, I think he says in it that he was even surprised at how easy it was. Yeah,
exactly. And looking at this video that Warren's done, he's covered off some pretty key complex concepts, such as the scheduling, which maybe not a lot of people do stuff with the background task of the scheduler in V8, and it's changed significantly in V9 as well. But Warren's updated his package as part of this to work with that, which is really cool. So more content like this is just going to fill us with more and more confidence, I think, in getting this working. And I would mention as well that Soren, who's always really proactive, he's got a prototype of doc-type grid editor working for Umbraco 9 as well. So people are slowly starting to get things running, having a play. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, it's definitely going to speed up with this beta release. I think people are going to be a lot more confident to actually go in and start playing with it.
Yeah, indeed. So for anyone that watched the umbraCoffee Lungo episode that Marcin and I did on the 1st of April, we dumped a bunch of things in there that were fake and a bunch of things that were true. And one of the things we mentioned was there's going to be a magical button where you should just be able to migrate from .NET Framework to .NET Core. And it sounds too good to be true, but I think, and we'll do an episode on this, it is actually kind of true. So Microsoft have released a tool now that is the, I can't quite remember the name, but it will effectively migrate from .NET Framework for something over to .NET 5. And when I say migrate, it will update all of the core system things that you need. Change your references, maybe the method signatures as well if you really want, and it will migrate those over. That's really interesting though, because it's pluggable, entirely pluggable. So there could be, someone could create this, it's a JSON definition, I think. Someone could create a definition that maps the old Umbraco namespaces from V8 over to the new ones in V9 and run this tool, and it might, just might be able to, install the correct NuGet packages and make sure your solution is semi-migrated. It would be an interesting thing to experiment with. But as part of all of this discovery that people are doing now to find out, what has actually changed, this will be really important for that migration process. Whether it's something that is done automatically or something that people just have to follow a set of checklists. But exciting time, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
We mentioned uSkinned a lot. Should we talk about uSkinned? I think it's
time.
So I think we mentioned this. It's been a little while since you announced. When was it?
It was in 21st of March.
Yeah, cool. So you unveiled the new uSkinned site builder.
Yes.
And this looks really, really cool. So maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding of it. It's a slight deviation away from the idea of having themes and plugins, in that it gives you full control, full flexibility to build the exact layout that you want. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, previously we had a variety of themes for sale, and every theme had subtle differences in the code base behind the scenes. So what we did was we looked at what these similarities and differences were between all the themes, and basically came up with a way of providing a single code base that and be able to achieve all these differences that we had between the different themes. And at the end of the day, the main difference was how the navigation worked. The actual content and the components and features like SEO features and navigation, all the rest of it, were all the same, but the header and the way the navigation was positioned design-wise was the main differences between the themes. So yeah, that's where we've come up with this kind of site builder approach, and also a visual designer that works in preview mode of Umbraco, so that you can actually see the changes that you're making in real time, just to make it that bit easier for somebody designing the site. What we've seen, because we still work with clients, is that clients are getting more demanding on what they actually want, the flexibility, especially marketing departments, because they're coming from, some of them might have come from Wix or Squarespace, and they're like, right, I want to change this color scheme, I want to change this layout, and it's like, well, that's fixed, you can't change that. So having to compete with that, that's why we've brought that kind of thing into our product. But at the same time, I don't know if you've ever used Wix or played about with Squarespace.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference is that every time you create a new page in Squarespace or Wix, you're really having to design the page again. Their products are aimed at designers who are going to design every single element, whereas Umbraco's, like, as you know, like if you're working for an agency or whatever and you're building a website for the client, it's the editor that you're aiming for. The design's already done, and you want to make the editor experience as simple as possible, so that they can just go in, they don't need to be chained up on it, they just go in and they add their content. Everything's pre-designed. So it's finding that kind of balance between giving the design enough design control without having to touch code, and making the editor experience really clean and smooth and not a headache, basically.
And that's why we kind of separate out as a design section almost, and you can create numerous themes of your own. You can add custom code to those themes. You can actually create a custom code base entirely. You can deviate away from uSkinned entirely's code base. You can just use the CMS element of it. So we'll kind of show you that when we go through it. One of the things.
Do you want me to add your screen in?
Yeah, sure.
So that's my. Is that my screen or your screen?
Yeah, well, Mark, you go through the CMS just to show the kind of breakup of it all, and then I'll go through just making some edits to design stuff.
Yeah. So the way that uSkinned works is remained pretty much the same since we started like 5 years ago, and it's scary when I say 5 years ago, but it's always been the same kind of structure, with component-based design, no fixed page templates, like so no contact page template, no about us page template. It's basically a page that you add components to. And before Block Editor came out, the way we did that was with component folders. So every page on a site had a component folder below it, and then you would add components to that folder, and that would organize the structure of your page. But with the introduction of Block Editor, it fit perfectly with our approach. And the nice thing is that you can split content and settings apart. So again, you can keep like the interface clean. So general structure of a uSkinned site is you've got a global settings node. So that is the global settings for your site. It's not page related content, it's global site content. So you would organize like your navigation, your footer, different global settings for the site from this area. Then you've got your content G with your structure. So as you see the block editor there, and you can add from a library of components to that page. So the nice thing about the block editor is that you've also got the settings section. So you can either go straight into content or you can go to settings, and it allows us to split everything up, keep the interface clean. If an editor is just adding content and they're a bit scared of the settings, they can just add content, and then as they get more familiar with how things work, they can get a bit more adventurous and go into settings and start playing about with things. So all the standard stuff that you would expect of a website, SEO, ability to add scripts to a page, control different elements of the navigation for individual pages. All very clean, straightforward. That's the kind of thing that we're going for. So the new thing that we've introduced with the site builder is the design section. So you can add any number of designs to your site, which is quite useful. I mean, a lot of people might think that this isn't something that you would normally do, but it can be very useful for marketing departments that are doing landing pages. So the landing page might have a completely different design from the rest of the site. So you can actually create designs that are specific for a specific landing page. We've also designed this so that you can have any number of sites sitting within Umbraco. So the way that works is every website would have its own global node, and the home page relates to that global node. So if you add more home pages, you would create another global node, and then you can have its own global node. So on individual pages, you can override the design. So if I go into a page, I can actually override the design that page has. So the global node actually says the global design for the site, but I can override it on a page-by-page level. I can also override the global node for a page inside the site. So say you wanted a page that had different navigation, you can have another global node that controls only that page. So that's why you've got the two overrides sitting there. So there's lots of settings in there, and there's millions. I forget half of them. There's a lot of settings in there because they've basically built up for the last 5 years. A lot of it's come from user feedback from our customers saying, "Oh, I'd like it to do that," and if we think it's good for everybody, then we'll add it in. So it's grown a lot of features over the years. So Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll just go. One of the things you'd said previously on Twitter, Warren, was you were working on a new Bump Digital site. So I'm just going to quickly kind of go through the process of how you would go about from the install, creating your own new design with your content based on your current one-page Bump Digital website.
Yeah.
Cool.
If I can, I've added you to the stream. There we go.
Cool. So, first of all, so we go to the design panel. You see you've got all your installed themes as you would have, but you can create new ones. So the first thing I would do if I was creating a new client site is I'd create one called Bump Digital, and I'd give it a logo. So I've got your folder already set up, the brand, and it's your light logo. So really that's all we need to worry about from there. Now that's created, we can go to global, and we want to make this site-wide. So we'll remove the wireframe design, and you'll get the slide out panel, and we can choose Bump Digital. So obviously, when you create a new design, it initially adopts the wireframe design. It will add some settings. So can I show you that as an overview, actually? So back in here, within the design panel, you've got a bunch of layout options. You get your logo, colors. You can add extra colors, extra button colors. There's a lot of spacing elements. So spacing elements tend to be like padding for the logo, depending on the screen size, creating fixed header widths and things like that. So it's got a maximum width on it. And the other thing you can do in here is you can add as many fonts as you want. The fonts have a bunch of selectors already predefined. And once you've created a font up the top, so you can create one, and I believe it's Open Sans that you use.
I think so, yeah.
So we'll keep it as normal, make it 4. So this is doing this from inside the design panel. You can do this as the visual designer as well. But now that we've added that,
Paul, it'd be good to show how the font, you can see the font preview on the right-hand side. It's just...
Yeah, sure. So, so now that that's been added to the top here, so we've got our bank of fonts that we've created, and now we're onto the typography. And so that bank of fonts is now appearing in this drop-down, and you'll see how that changes. And you can change, so let's make mobile 26. So obviously you start to get a preview, and this is how we slowly made our way to creating the visual designer. So we started off by doing it was all from the CMS, but I'll leave it as that now. You can also add some background image options here, which is just for the footer and your body. The rest of the stuff would be handled purely on a component basis. Here you also have custom CSS. So really, as much as you can branch away from the code base that we provide, really a lot of the stuff that you're going to add is custom CSS.
Yeah.
So you can add in things to just make slight changes. And there's also, based on our additional content colors and button colors, you can actually put them into the loop so that you're not like defining, say, C1BG all the time. You follow our step and you define it with this class, and it will work for all color instances.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cool with touches like that. But I'll maybe try and go over that later. And then there's custom JavaScript. Again, you can just add as you wish. And then in the advanced one, like I'd said, you can branch away from the uSkinned code base. So there's 4 elements you need to make a change to. So start off by copying the initial uSkinned code base and then start changing it as you wish. And once you add a new theme to the config or a new code base to the config, it will appear as a drop down here, and you'll be able to choose Bump Digital code base. So it means you can totally branch away straight off the bat.
So one thing as well, you can hide this design panel. So when Paul goes onto a page and you go into preview mode, you'll get the design panel, but you can actually hide that from editors. So after you've created your design and say you don't want your editors to have that control, basically if Paul clicks on the design node, click on that, just the actual main design, and then go to content, so you can hide the design panel.
So that's handy if, like, I want my designer to control all the layout, but the content editors, the marketing team, they just should be concerned with content. So I can still separate that. And I guess maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I guess with user permissions for the nodes, we can restrict marketing even having access to the global or the design potentially. Nice.
So there are some visual elements within the design panel before we go into actually using the visual designer. So you do have some like previews for different layouts and navigation options, but I'll leave that to doing it as the actual visual designer. So I'll just discard those. And this is the initial demo content. So all we've done is changed the name of the site and the global settings to Bump Digital, and you'll see that it's just our demo content. So we'll just delete all these components and we'll build up your page. So we start off, I believe it was a banner at the top. So we create a banner component and then we add a banner to it. So we're going to give it a H1 because it's good SEO practice to add an SEO to add a H1 to a page. And we've got your kind of introductory content, and there was an image assigned to it. So we'll go into the banner folder, and it was the cover image. So that's all the kind of content for that set. Into the settings. Again, we've not actually created our new color palette, but we're only going to define 2 colors in this, so we can keep using the wireframe base colors while we're doing this, and then we can edit in the visual designer. So we've got a few settings here. There's takeover banner, which we're going to go for. Yes, three other ones. Scale would scale with the page. Takeover always wants to fill the viewport. So we text align center, text position center, add a color overlay. You've got scroll prompt. There's 3 options for scroll prompt. So you can make it a line, you can make it a mouse wheel.
Just to touch on something that happened there, Callum. So when Paul hit scroll prompt there, you'll notice that fields appeared. So we've done quite a lot of conditional fields across the field so that settings only appear when they're relevant to other settings that you've selected.
Nice. It's really nice.
So we can also turn on parallax as well, and we can add animation, and you've got a few options with animation. So we'll go a bit crazy and we'll do zoom in, and we'll make it like 0.8. You can also add custom classes. So again, you can go crazy. You can have the same component look like a million different ways, depending on how you use these settings, but then also depending on how you actually create custom CSS to go with this. And finally, once you could actually be working on a component, but you don't want it to show on the site. So we've got this wee override that would hide it from the site until it's ready to be published.
That's cool.
Which is something that I think a lot of people have wanted built into Block Editor. And
yeah, it's definitely something that I think there's an RFC currently for, you know, how can the block editor data actually be treated more like normal content, where you can publish it, schedule publish it, have variant blocks, like that all comes with that. So it's definitely good.
So one of the next thing you had was, it was a bunch of logos in a kind of gallery.
I think so.
I just need to find gallery. We'll create a gallery, and it had a little introduction. So we'll switch on the conditional introduction. It was centered, I believe, in clients we work with, and we'll keep that as a medium-sized secondary heading, but we can adjust that when we're in the visual design. And we've got 4 options in the gallery, so you can do single images, single videos. You can choose a full media folder if you wish, if you've got 100 images and it's just a bit easier. Or you can do multiple images at one time. So you've got a little bit more control with that one. Do you remember the order? Was it Help for Heroes, Cake Shop? Yeah.
One of that, it doesn't really matter.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We'll disable the light window just because it's logos. You don't really need them to open up in a larger version of themselves. It was 3 per row. You can also name components as well. So we'll call this like logos, and you can remove the padding around the gallery. You can set different ratios. So we've added your kind of typical photographic ratios. So you get 2:1, 1:1, 16:9, things like that as settings. So, and you can also choose box pad.
Does that apply image processor crops and stuff to the images?
Yes. So box pad them, just because they're logos and we want to make sure that the image is fully present and doesn't crop anything at all. So we'll go with the white background.
Also, just to say, with those image crops, if those image crops don't match what you want to use at the end of the day, which they should, but if there's some weird image crop that you want in there, it is just a case of changing the data type cropper to add that crop in, and then we've got a bunch of classes inside the app code folder, so they're not compiled classes, so that when anyone that's using our themes want to change something, they can go in and actually change the code in there. So there's additional settings for the crops inside one of these classes that that organises the lazy load effects and the sizes that the image should be before the lazy loads. So
yeah, so also on a full component, you have options for anchor names, again, custom classes, and you have that on each item as well, the custom classes, so you can go really crazy and like kind of start really just defining one individual item within a component to look totally different from others. You can sticky elements, but we'll just add a clients as the name for now, so we'll maybe add a little anchor navigation. The next component was also a gallery on your site, so we'll just stick to that design for now. There are other ways we could achieve that. Again, there was an introduction and it was just a block of text, so there's a lot of options in here. Everything that was inside the design panel, which under typography and fonts, is available here as well. So,
very nice.
And it was just bold up that as well. Again, we'll just use multiple images. And this time we'll leave the light window on just so we can see that working as well. And I believe there were square images, and it was 4 in a row, wasn't it? So, and I will give that a name as well, so we'll just call it team. You'll see that we also named that component itself. So in the CMS, you can actually give names to the component. So
it overrides the label in the block list. That's really handy.
It's just something that makes it really clear to people.
we have thought about using a custom view for this list, but the default view that Umbraco provides is quite compact, and that works quite well for editors. You can go fancy with that view and create like
it's a really interesting one, because like the grid, of course, is a visual editor inside the back office, and I'm not always sure how I feel about that. Like, I think if editors are accustomed to just having that consistent structured UI for editing content, whether it's a structured page or if it's a flexible one like this, it does sort of make sense to keep it that way.
Well, we always believe that, like, so with grid, and maybe like you can do like what you see is what you get type thing with the block editor as well, but our thoughts on that is it's never exactly what you see is what you get, because like you're viewing it in just the width of the CMS. So like you know what I mean, you're never actually going to get what you see on the front end of the site. So that's why we've stuck to using the block editor as we do.
Nice.
So we'll also add a form. There's a bunch of form options. So we'll add a little introduction to it, and it'll be get in touch, and we'll make it an H3. Again, all headings and things, so you get full control over the hierarchy for SEO benefits. And then you can also just make them, it's a paragraph tag if you use S, M, or L. And that means if you've already got, if you want to use a large looking heading, which you've defined in your design, which is similar to your H1, but you don't want to have two H1s on a page, because that's terrible practice.
That's fantastic, because I've often had this from marketing people where they go, oh, I need this to be an H1. It's like, they mean stylistically they want that to be an H1, but semantically you don't. And as a developer, you're the one that then they come back to you going, we've got an SEO report back and it's flagged as multiple H1s on the page. Well, that's because that's what you said you wanted.
Yeah, that's exactly why we've added it. It's those sort of questions, whether it's been on our previous V7 themes or actual direct clients through the agency. That's the sort of request you get time and time again. So yeah, we had to include it. It just makes it so much easier for anybody. It makes sense. So we've got a bunch of different form types. Out of the box, we provide 2 forms. Well, we actually provide login and registration for membership and stuff like that. But 2 contact forms, essentially, a fully contact form and a sign-up form. Both of those can hook into MailChimp and Campaign Monitor if you have access to MailChimp or Campaign Monitor account. You can also add a Umbraco Forms form that you've created, but we've not actually added any to this site. So we'll just use the contact form. I'll add in the uSkinned support. So you can add in a little bit more text just above and below the form. You can define what the button says. You can give it a thank you message. You can also override the global subscriber list IDs. So if you want to collect
specific something.
So it's ideal for landing pages. That's where that's born out of. It's from creating large scale websites that need hundreds of landing pages for clients, and that's how we've eventually added it into the themes or into the site builder. So there's a few things with the forms one that's a little bit different. So you've got your component color. So we'll make the component color the light color for time being, and we'll use this dark color that's already defined for the form container itself, and we'll make it center, and we'll do something stupid with the animation. So we'll see that happen. So there are a lot of different animations options, and it's just a matter of like trial and error what you want to use. But Jack in the Box, a bit of a ridiculous one that we've left in for people, and we'll just create that. So we'll save and publish the site, and can you see the actual site now?
Yep.
So I'll refresh that. So we've not added our own design. Well, we've created a design, but we've not actually added the design elements that make it bump digital. But we've added the content, and we're ready to go with creating the visual designer. And one thing I'll do before that, actually, which we don't need, was I spotted there was a bit of global content, and this is another part of the global settings. You can create global components which sit in certain areas. So if you've got an alert message about your COVID changes to deliveries and things like that, you can have that appear at the top of the site on every page. You can override that on a page-by-page basis as well, or you can actually add your own ones on a page-by-page basis, but we don't need that. Plus, it's a CTA one's a good one for site-wide getting in touch, but it's a one-page site, we don't need it. The other thing we don't need for the one-page site is the navigation. So you'll see we've got kind of fully controlled navigation.
Mm-hmm. So that'll look familiar to you, Callum?
Yeah. It's
Hogwarts.
It's similar to the V7 MegaNav. So.
Yeah, it is.
So we'll leave the rest of the navigation for now. We'll just have it. What I'll do now is I'll open up the visual designer.
So that visual designer only shows when you're in the preview mode?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool.
So you can choose to open up, and also there's a kind of preview content option as well that you can mess about with. But yeah, it doesn't save the content edits that you make to.
Can you do a quick example of that, Paul, just to show that?
Yeah, it's good for the.
It's just built into browsers. I can't remember the.
Yeah, the tag you can put on any element that basically makes it a.
Yeah, so
it lets you see or test out how like your layout changes would work with length of text and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll edit something to do with the header. So what we could do is we choose one of the other header options. We could center the navigation. We could turn it into a burger nav at all sizes. We can go a bit crazier. Obviously, you can start to change the height of the heading in the visual designer. So although that might not look exactly what you want to look, you can increase the height and it will add a bit more spacing around everything. But for now, we'll stick with the layout we've got, and we'll work on the colours. So I've got the colours saved here that I can start adding in. So again, it's the purple. I don't know how obviously different that is.
Yeah.
Just from the black on the screen share, but you can see we can actually add gradients, and you can go a bit crazy.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can have a radial gradient. So obviously it doesn't work particularly well. It can work depending on the colours you use well in the header, but we'll just leave it as a solid colour at the minute, and we'll change this. There's no borders on this header layout, but you'll see from header 4 had borders, and it doesn't now because we've made them the same colour as the background. The logo one is if you don't actually upload image logo, you can actually control the link and hover colours of the logo itself. It's just plain text.
Textual, like the site name or something instead.
Yeah. The other thing we want to do, so we've got one additional colour added already. So we created this dark colour. So you'll see that there was a slight change there. We can actually go
in the gradient.
Yeah, so that's the overlay for the banner. You can start to see. So we'll leave that kind of. It looks quite nicely over that image. We'll leave all the other settings. We could actually go crazy and start to make that red if you want. But this is what we mean by we want to create a global design, and it's similar to like if you get given a brand guidelines from a client. you've got the content ready. You start adding the content to prototype what you want for user journey wise, and then you can come in here, look at the brand guidelines, and start really designing the website. So we'll leave that. In fact, we'll make it a bit darker. And we'll do this. Okay, and we'll scroll down, and that's obviously quite dark. That's a black. So again, this is the main base content color. You can add additional colors, any number of additional colors you want, and start editing them. But we'll just stick to the two. We'll stick with a kind of purple and a white, and we'll edit the. So you can see that's the secondary headings color changing.
So these additional colors, that's what you would have seen when Paul was adding the component before. There was like the white one with the black text over it and the black one with the white text. So you can start building up a color palette of lots of colors that you can pick from when you're actually adding a component. And because you've created it as a library, the editor has got the ones that you've allowed them to pick. They're not going in and picking any old color and adding it to a site, and that's kind of what we were saying about that new feature that's in Umbraco 8.13, where it's like an actual color picker.
Yeah.
The scenario that people might use that, which could get quite scary for designers, is that they've designed a site and then the editor goes in and just picks
something random.
Luminous green.
Other things you can do, so in the spacings tab, you can obviously that's on the small screen, so I'll leave that one for now. But you'll see that that's starting to change the spacing around the logo slightly. So we'll keep that as that, just to make the logo a bit bigger, stand out a little bit more. Another thing, you've got standard components, so padding. So on a kind of left align, right align page, you've got this padding option. But then you've on kind of more full width page, kind of takeover pages, you've got options for the components, the intro and outro widths, and across different desktops, different sizes of devices, so desktop down to mobile. But on the banner, so if we make that 0, you'll see it's kind of crazy, but we'll go with 50, and we'll reduce that down as well, because it's never great being too wide. But you can kind of see. Let's have a look.
I was going to ask, does the responsive view in the preview work? But that's great. So I can actually edit the design at any breakpoint as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really cool.
So we'll keep that as 50. The rest we'll kind of keep as is, and we'll go to the fonts because that's something we started doing in the design panel itself. So we've already added one Open Sans. We can actually delete all the previous ones, but we'll keep them for now. And we'll just create 2 Open Sans. We'll go 700, and we've already got a 400. So, and I'll actually move this back up to full browser width. So similar to inside the design panel, you've got options to so you can actually access the font bank that you've created. So H1 we've got, and we can actually make that kind of go a bit crazy. You can change the letter spacing, so it could be.
Oh, that's actually good.
Let's go a bit. You know what I mean? So you can actually do anything that you would need to be able to do from a brand guidelines to create a fully functioning design. You can also change the line height. Obviously, it won't make a massive difference because there's only one line of text. But we'll leave that as 1 for now. You can change the font size depending on the device you're viewing. Obviously, if we change the browser size, we can work on it for different screen sizes. You can automatically make all H1s capitalized or all lowercase or capital case. But we'll just stick to as is, and we'll give full control to the editor for that. So the other thing, obviously, everything else is still using the Helvetica. So you'll see that we're now editing the medium size. And I did notice there was quite a lot of letter spacing on your design. So we'll do that as well. But yeah, you get the idea. And we can go through each element. and change these. I probably should have deleted the initial ones, to be honest. And we can delete them from inside here as well. So you can start to see that once you start deleting them, they'll all start adopting the first one you've created here.
I see, right.
So
like
all the other H1s are now, yeah. So we can now go through these and individually add the 700 width. But yeah, it's just the reason we actually have this separated. So otherwise we could actually include it here. But the reason we have this kind of font bank is it's so we're making sure on the front end that we're only serving the exact sizes, or weights that we require for that font. So that's why we have that sort of separation. And we'll just save and publish this, and that's you saved your design. You can do
that's what that's editing there is the design node that we went and created in the CMS.
Yeah. So if I go in the design node in the CMS now, go to Bump Digital, and we've deleted all those fonts, didn't we? So they're all deleted.
Cool.
So there are some things in the design panel that you can only do from inside the CMS, and that's the logo, uploading a logo image, and custom CSS and custom JavaScript.
I assume because they require those editors, those kind of specialist, picking from a media item and stuff is a bit.
Yeah. Well, it's more to do with the CSS variables. So there's only so many things that you can actually attach to CSS variables. So that anything that is getting edited in the preview mode, what it's actually doing is just changing the value of a CSS variable. So the logo couldn't be a variable, the actual value behind the logo. So it's purely for the style and not actual content. The logo would be more content than an actual style.
Yeah, and something I just remembered as well, you did have a transparent header on your...
Oh, yeah. Oh, so wow.
We've now got a transparent header, and we can choose to show it on scroll, so it'll just disappear, or it can be on scroll. And then you can do that on mobile as well, or on small screens. So another thing you can actually do in the design panel is define your breakpoint, your kind of main breakpoint. You can actually add any other breakpoint you want through the custom CSS, but on it's your main header breakpoint you can actually define.
Okay. Oh, that's really cool.
So what we'll do now, there's a couple of wee adjustments I want to try and make. And I think just since it's a one-page website, we'll probably want to center the logo. And I can, what I'll actually do is I'll increase the header size a little, just so there's a bit more emphasis on that logo. I'll save and publish that. And with it being a one-page website, we'll want to add those anchor names earlier on. So I'll go back in the CMS, and I'll add an anchor navigation just after the banner. And if I can remember, hopefully I can remember the names I gave these. So, team. And contact. And then the settings is just like every other component. We'll center it, we'll make it the button style, and we'll make it the kind of white background. And you'll actually see, it's hard to tell because it's the dark purple, but you'll see that that's actually now pulling through the colors we've already saved in the new design. So that just automatically happens. And if you've got maybe another design being used on a lower level page, it will always pick up the correct colors based on the design that page should have.
Oh wow! So if I've gone to the advanced tab on content, chosen a different design, contextually within the node when I'm editing,
yes,
the correct values. Wow.
Yeah. So once you override it, it will do that as well. But we'll go back to the main page. We'll refresh it, and we've now got. Oh, in fact, we'll remove that main, the secondary navigation stuff. So we've got a few navigation elements. We've got the main, secondary, footer navigation. We'll keep for now. We've got full membership, both logged in and not logged in navigation. And we've got CTA navigation, which is really just call out buttons navigation. And we've got either if you want to do one-to-one or multi-tenant language variants.
So the way that works is that if it's multi-tenant, you create your own language navigation. If it's one-to-one, it would automatically build the language navigation based on the variants that you've added, the variant languages you've added.
Yeah, and I see that the search field's still available. So as much as you could, it's a one-page website. You don't want to be able to search. Again, you just don't define the results page, and you've now no longer got a search page.
Lovely.
And we'll just scroll down, and we've got our little buttons.
Mm.
I must have named that wrongly.
Yeah.
Let's double check. It's the classic demo, isn't it?
Demo gods have been okay so far.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. I'm learning stuff.
Oh. So, I also want to make this sticky. Yeah, you can see that's working.
Yeah.
I maybe just I maybe didn't refresh it properly, but yeah, you'll see. So that's basically your new Bump Digital website, and we can send you login details for this, and you can just switch it over to this if you wish.
Nice. Well, I'm going to say I'm incredibly impressed. I've not used uSkinned in a very long time, I'll admit.
Yeah.
It's definitely not been on V8, and it's definitely been a few years. So it would have been kind of V7-ish somewhere. And it's come on a long way in terms of the flexibility that you're giving there. I'm really impressed at how much control actually I can have over everything, to the point where I probably never have to write CSS again, which is lovely.
Yeah.
It looks really, really cool. And you mentioned the of course, this example, this site, we had to this week for various reasons pull together a new site in like a matter of minutes or hours, and quite honestly hadn't considered uSkinned really being an option. But this has changed my mind, so I would definitely look next time I want to pull something together. And even, I know we discussed this when we talked about Uno and the value proposition there, but pulling together an example of how a design could work on a site in Umbraco for a pitch or something. This is fantastic.
We do see a lot of people doing that, basically using it as a kind of wireframe to build out the design, and then it's good to show, it can show the clients what they can potentially have, and then obviously with the extra bits and the extra functionality that you add in, it gives them that kind of thing that you can see before you, a better way of selling it into them. And just and obviously,
and obviously what we've showed there is just really, it's just the basics of what you can do. I mean, you can go, there's 22 components, I think, in total. Within those components, there's countless like settings and possibilities essentially to make a really unique design. Yeah,
I'm impressed at the amount of options you've got in there as well. And I worried that it would be slightly overwhelming. I think the experience of uSkinned before, at least when you had the component folders, was that it was a little bit overwhelming, not so easily discoverable. But now you've got the block list, you've got the collapsible properties. It's clean. It's really nice.
Yeah, because that is the danger. We're given lots of settings. That's the danger. Like if you go into a WordPress site and it's like, oh my god, the editor going into WordPress for the first time. There's so many options there. So you still want to give a lot of options, but it's about kind of hiding the ones that they don't need, and they only need it. When they do need it, they can go in and find it.
And another thing we have is the main activity dashboard, which has tools. So obviously, if somebody is logging into it and it's the first time they've ever used Umbraco, using anything for the first time is going to be a little bit overwhelming. So using the tools that Umbraco has built in, we've added this part to our dashboard, and it steps you through creating your own design and the kind of best practice process of like editing content and then getting your site ready to go live, suggesting about editing your SEO and share tab. So we've got this edits in real time as well. So umbraCoffee, and so you get to see that, you get a instantly told whether you're going over or under the limit.
That's great.
You can have social share images on every page, Twitter user creator on every page. So you've got that in global level, these two options. But on a page-by-page sites, you've got a guest blog article. you're wanting to go live, and that user you want to use that user's Twitter authority. So you want to use that creator username on that page itself. You can also hide a page from search engine, stop it being linked, links being followed, and you can have a whole lot of other settings as well.
Very, very nice. That looks really awesome. So my only question here is, of course, the core of uSkinned has always been the themes, but this doesn't change that, does it? What happens to the themes now?
Well, what we kind of started to do when we moved to V8. So before in V7, it was themes. Everything was totally its own code base. We had 12 themes, I think, in V7, totally on code base. So when we moved to V8, we wanted to try and like kind of redefine that slightly. We wanted to have multiple theme designs installing in the one site. So initially, the V8 themes that we created, you could have multiple themes installed, but as Marc said, we started to notice the code base was really similar between them all. So there was a default set of partials and CSS and stuff like that for each theme design, but then each theme would have maybe a different header layout. So the header partial was totally different on each theme design, but with the visual designer, that kind of eliminates the point in themes itself. You can still buy a theme design from uSkinned, but it's separate to buying the uSkinned site builder.
So site builder is now what I would buy, whereas before I'd buy the theme.
Yeah, you would buy a theme and you would try and figure out how that theme the header layout works for you or how you want to customize it. But now you've got all that option. You just install the site builder, and then say you do want a real quick start and there's a theme design that works really well for this particular client, you can install it, but then you can actually customize it fully as well. So one of the other designs here.
So Callum, basically when you install a theme design, all it's doing is actually installing all the settings that are inside that design panel. So obviously it could take a bit of time to go through that and fine tune it. So we've got example designs that you can install against this. Basically that's them all there.
Yeah, and some of the designs do come with their own custom CSS as well. So there are custom elements to them, and they all call the variables, the CSS variables that we're working with behind the scenes as well. So you can actually, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be CSS that does not already relate to other code that's available. You can actually relate to the variables that are within the code base.
Paul, it might be worth actually just going into the design section and clicking through the different designs that we've got, just so that you can get an idea of how flexible it is.
Actually, I'll do it on the main demo. I've got that already set up. So yeah, we've got, I think there's 17. Well, if you include the wireframe, there's 18 themes you can design, get straight out of the box. Harris is quite a good one. It uses some nice animation. So you see the spaceman floating up using the Jack in the Box animation that we used on your form. Yeah, so you get all this content installed when you did buy a theme design, which it's still got great use cases. There's still going to be there's still a lot of customers who want the ready-made design, but there's also just as many who want to have total freedom. But both installing just the site builder or installing the site builder then a theme, you still have full control to add as many designs as you wish. So yeah, there's let's have a look at kind of, yeah, so
oh, nice. This just shows how versatile it is actually with the different.
Yeah, so you can go from, I mean, actually this is quite a cool navigation. So you get total slide out navigation.
Nice.
We've not added a recipient email address. You get some galleries. But yeah, we've really, like I say, we've really only scratched like just the bare bones of what you can do. And it is something, we've got a couple of videos on YouTube at the minute, but we are hoping to add more videos over the next month or so. We're going to add full tutorials, and there are actually guides on the website. We've written a lot of guides on how to integrate different things. And that's the other thing, you can extend it without really accessing the full code base, but you can also extend it and just edit the entire code base to suit yourself, like I'm sure a lot of Umbraco developers will want to do.
Yeah, indeed, and potentially, you know, add some bespoke functionality depending on a custom requirement for a client.
Yeah, so it's something we do, and we do recommend so we actually create update packages for the site builder, and we did this with the previous set of themes. So when we go to 1.0.2, there'll be an update package within the uSkinned members area that you can download and install, and you get all the new either bug fixes or updates that we're adding. And we kind of recommend using uSync for that. So it works well with other Umbraco packages as well.
So we will basically, sometimes there's document type and data type changes that we might introduce. So uSync is just unbelievably good for updating things like that. So when you actually install the update package, it doesn't overwrite anything. It basically puts a bunch of files in a folder for you. And then it's a case of, if it's document type and data type changes, you copy your uSync folder in and run the update. If it's partial view, style sheet changes, that kind of thing, you can do a file compare just in case you have changed any of your own code. Or just
the hope would be if someone's going to the extent of actually customizing this, they've got it in Git and those changes are tracked, and you can compare and merge those anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, you can add embed code, everything. So a lot of the stuff you can add, a lot of people want to edit already is available. So you can, YouTube's already hooked into it. YouTube, Vimeo, you can upload MP4s to the CMS. But yeah, we try in the designs that we sell, showcase as much of the versatility as we can.
Very nice.
We will create more designs, and we'll try something Mike had mentioned from Umbraco, trying to create designs maybe more geared towards different industries. And it's something that we're considering as well.
Nice.
But it was something that we were also trying to get away from with the naming of the themes, because previously the themes kind of were industry focused, and what we found was people were purchasing the theme that was related to that industry when it was really, it's just a design, it's just a colour at the end of the day. So,
or you get a support inquiry or pre-purchase inquiry saying, do you have one that suits a hosting company? And it's like, well, it's really down to your imagination what one suits the hosting company, because any of them could. There is this one, which kind of maybe looks like a hosting company, but yeah, we're trying to get away from that, and that's where the site builder gives you the full control.
Indeed.
To create whatever theme design you wish.
Very nice, very cool. I think I'm going to have to go away and have a play with this, because there's a lot of potential there. Really great work. Well done, both.
We'll send you the link to that one. And you've got a login, you can mess about as you wish.
I'll have a play. Brilliant. Thank you both. Cool. We'll just very quickly wrap up then. We've got a few other little bits of news just to cover off for today. We had a couple of releases. We've spoken before. We had Sam on as well. We're big fans of his work and the ecstatic package that he's done. And Phil Whitaker, who we're also big fans of, did a pull request to make this work with file system providers, so it could use Azure Media and all of that stuff, which is awesome. Another thing I noticed, which is this is definitely unique for package devs, I think. I'd love to open this up as a discussion point maybe on Twitter. How many people are actually doing telemetry on packages? So Lee Kelleher has baked in some telemetry into Contentment, and he has stats on which property editors are used most and which configurations they use. It's all anonymized data, but it's all very valuable. It's incredibly valuable, and I think it's something that I'd love to see more packages doing. Of course, you can opt out and all that stuff, but it's really interesting for Lee sharing these stats.
That's cool.
Nice.
Of course, as I mentioned, one of the reasons that we needed to pull our website together this week was that we became the first vendor prestige partner. They tweeted about this all last week, that it was going to happen. I had to keep it very quiet last Friday. It was a bit difficult when March was asking questions about it. But here we are with the first vendor prestige partner, and we needed a website that wasn't embarrassing actually when we launched. So go read the blog all about why we became a partner, why we love vendor, etc. Cool. Azure Snacks, which is the Dutch Umbraco user group's series of content about Azure, and they've got 3 of the episodes up now on. There is 3. That one of them was a day or 2 ago. 3 episodes of Azure Snacks up on their website. Again, link down below. If you want to learn about Azure Web Apps, Azure SQL, and Azure Networking, and how Umbraco falls into all of that, go take a look. Umbraco MVP Awards. Of course, every year Umbraco awards standout members of the community for their contributions. Nominations are open. Again, links down below. Go and nominate anyone who's maybe had an impact on you. Really, it doesn't have to be someone who's been, massively known in the community. It's great just to recognise people for their contribution. And also, don't forget that not only should you be trying to nominate new people, but also existing people. If someone's made an impact, just nominate them. You can nominate for renewals and for new first-time nominations as well. The Umbraco Accessibility team are going to be doing a Global Accessibility Awareness Day event on May 20th, which will be cool. They're going to announce some things soon. Hopefully we'll get some content there around what's actually happening in the Umbraco sphere with accessibility work. Can pigeons procrastinate? The answer is yes. And the Candid Contributions team have done a fantastic podcast this week, I think it was yesterday, about you're looking after yourself and kind of it being okay to procrastinate and that sometimes is actually kind of needed as part of your thinking process and your learning process. So go give that a listen. It was a really good episode. I was going to mention this one. It's an interesting one. So this one is an issue that was raised to discuss: should Umbraco by default ship with a header that removes Google's FLOC new protocol? So for those that don't know, Google want to replace tracking cookies with this system baked into Chrome that will handle ad tracking for you, and you can opt out by sending an HTTP header. There's discussions going on in the WordPress community right now, and the Drupal community as well, about all of this information. Should it really be shipped around? And then this issue is more of a question of whose responsibility is it to opt in or out of that. Maybe let us know in the comments if you've got some thoughts on, whether or not this should be something Umbraco ships with. I think for now it's been ruled out, and I probably personally err on that side as well. But it's a very interesting point of how, well, do we have a responsibility as site developers to be making that decision for our users?
Yeah.
Just touch on a couple final things. So Owen's Community Corner, of course, is back and featuring Nevin this week. Go read about him. He's from India. Seems really cool. And of course, we always love Dennis on the show. Dennis has done some amazing stuff here. We discussed the preview function of Umbraco and just how you're using it. Dennis has got another use case, which is really interesting. Imagine you're doing a headless site and you need a way of previewing content, but the content may be previewed as an app. It might actually be displayed in an app, or it might be powering a billboard somewhere. What should the preview look like? Well, you can override that functionality. So he's telling you about how we could use MVC routes to hijack Umbraco/preview URL and put your own preview engine in there, which is pretty sweet. And his other one was how to test composers in Umbraco, something I'd never even thought that you'd perhaps want to do, seeing as it's the kind of entry point to your application. But Dennis has got a blog post about it. Go give that a read as well. Links all down below. And that's everything. I mean, we've had a lot to talk about today, but I think this has been really good. And I also wanted to say just a quick thank you to Paul Seal, who bought us a coffee last week. Thanks for supporting us, Paul. That's it.
Magic.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us on.
Well, thanks for joining. As I said, really insightful. Great to see that the product's actually matured a lot since I last looked at it, and hopefully we give some other people maybe an opportunity to relook at it as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Great work. Great work. Thank you, and we'll see you all next Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers.